While you're scrolling through online bedding sales and comparing thread counts, Amish women are hand-stitching quilts that weigh 12 pounds and take 6 months to complete. No electric blankets, no heated mattress pads, just wool, cotton, and 500 hours of labor standing between their families and frozen winter nights. How winter quilts are different. Winter quilts contain batting 2 to 3 times thicker than summer versions, with stitching density reaching 12 stitches per inch compared to 6 for summer quilts. They weigh 8 to 12 pounds versus 3 to 5 pounds for warm weather bedding. This weight creates pressure that conforms the quilt to the body, eliminating air gaps. In bedrooms that drop to 40 degrees, these design differences prevent hypothermia and frostbite during sleep. Planning. The process starts in June or July when experienced women discuss which family members need new winter quilts. A queen-sized quilt requires 12 to 15 yards of fabric. Dark colors, deep blues, burgundies, blacks get selected deliberately because they absorb and retain heat better than light shades. Wool batting becomes the priority procurement item, costing $50 to $75 per quilt versus $20 to $30 for cotton. Women spend months locating suppliers and negotiating bulk prices with neighboring families. Gathering materials. By late summer, material gathering intensifies. Amish women participate in community fabric swaps where leftover pieces get redistributed. A woman with excess burgundy fabric might trade it to a neighbor needing that color, receiving navy blue in return. These informal exchanges operate on trust. No money changes hands, but everyone tracks who owes fabric for future transactions. Community fabric swaps operate on trust and rough equivalency. A woman with excess burgundy fabric trades it for navy blue she needs, with no money exchanged. Thread selection requires cotton-wrapped polyester for strength. It must pull through thick layers thousands of times without breaking. Some women process wool themselves from farm sheep, washing and carding it to save money. Dark cotton sateen or flannel provides better insulation than lightweight quilting cotton. Traditional winter patterns. Log cabin patterns rank among the most popular because their construction creates natural loft. Each fabric strip sewn progressively around a center square builds up layers that trap air. Double 9-patch patterns provide thickness through multiple intersecting seams where fabric overlaps. Whole cloth quilts eliminate pieced seams entirely, minimizing cold air infiltration, though they require expensive large fabric pieces. Intricate patterns with many small pieces get avoided. Numerous seams become cold penetration points. The quilting frame setup. By early fall, preparation shifts to actual construction. Winter quilt making requires community involvement because the heavy materials and dense stitching demand more hands than summer projects. Quilting frolics get scheduled for September and October before harvest demands become overwhelming, and while weather remains pleasant enough for comfortable indoor gathering. The quilting frame for winter quilts must be sturdier than those used for lighter projects. Heavy batting and multiple fabric layers create weight and tension that flimsy frames cannot support. Many Amish men build specialized heavy-duty frames specifically for winter quilting, using thick hardwood beams and reinforced corner joints. These frames become family heirlooms passed down through generations. Basting the quilt layers together presents significant challenge with thick batting. Some women use safety pins for basting winter quilts, a rare concession to modern convenience justified by the extreme difficulty of basting thick materials. The basting must be thorough. Batting shifting during quilting creates uneven insulation and cold spots in the finished quilt. Setting up the frame requires 6 to 8 women working together. The backing fabric gets stretched, taut, and secured to the frame rails. Batting gets carefully layered, sometimes 2 or 3 sheets thick for the warmest quilts, and smoothed to eliminate bunching. The piece top goes on last, and all layers get basted together before the actual quilting begins. This preparation alone can consume an entire day. Hand stitching for warmth. The quilting itself becomes a test of skill and endurance. Winter quilts require exceptionally dense stitching, 12 to 14 stitches per inch. sometimes more, to securely hold the thick batting layers and create maximum warmth. Each stitch must penetrate all layers completely, a difficult task when pushing a needle through heavy wool batting and multiple fabric layers. The physical demands are considerable. Quilters develop calluses on their fingers from forcing needles through resistant materials. Hands cramp after hours of repetitive motion. Women take turns at the frame, working in shifts to maintain quality when fatigue sets in. The quilting pattern itself affects warmth. Closely spaced parallel lines create more warmth than widely spaced decorative patterns because they compress batting more thoroughly and eliminate air movement between stitches. Most winter quilts feature simple diagonal line quilting or crosshatch patterns that prioritize function over artistic expression. A single queen-sized winter quilt requires 400 to 600 hours of quilting labor. When 6 to 8 women work together at a quilting frolic, they might complete a quilt in a week of intensive full-day sessions. A woman working alone during spare time might need 3 to 4 months to finish one winter quilt, creating multiple layers. The thickest winter quilts use a technique rarely seen in modern quilting: intentional layering of multiple batting sheets. Experienced quilters stack 2 or 3 thinner batting pieces, slightly offset so edges don't align. This creates air pockets between batting layers that enhance insulation while keeping the quilt more flexible than a single ultra-thick batting would allow. Flannel backings add another layer of warmth. Flannel's brushed surface traps air and feels warmer against skin than smooth cotton. Some winter quilts use flannel for both backing and binding, creating maximum warmth at every contact point with sleepers. Two-sided quilts represent the ultimate in winter bedding. These feature different fabrics on each side, perhaps a dark wool blend on top for heat absorption and flannel underneath for softness and warmth. Most Amish women create these only for special occasions, like weddings or milestone anniversaries. The total weight of these heavily layered quilts can reach 15 pounds or more. Moving them on and off beds becomes a two-person job. Most families wash winter quilts only once per season, in spring, and air them outdoors during winter on sunny days instead of washing them repeatedly. Special features. Winter quilts incorporate design features that summer quilts lack. Extra length ensures coverage when sleepers curl up. Winter quilts extend 6 to 8 inches longer than summer versions. This prevents exposed feet or backs when people shift during sleep. Tuck-in flaps along the sides seal the quilt around mattress edges, preventing drafts from rising through bed gaps. These flaps create a sealed sleeping environment that traps body heat more effectively. Corner weights, small fabric pouches filled with sand or dried beans, keep the quilt in place despite nighttime movement. Without these weights, heavy quilts can slide off beds, leaving sleepers exposed to cold. Some winter quilts feature extra fabric at the top edge that folds over pillows, creating a hood-like effect, keeping sleepers' heads and necks warm. This feature is particularly valued by elderly family members who sleep in the coldest rooms, farthest from heat sources. Family priority system. Quilt distribution within families follows clear hierarchies based on need. Elderly family members receive the warmest, heaviest quilts first. Older adults lose the ability to regulate body temperature effectively and suffer more from cold exposure. Grandparents sleeping in dowdy houses, small homes attached to main farmhouses where retired couples live, often inhabit the coldest sleeping spaces and get priority for new winter quilts. Young children, particularly infants and toddlers, receive specially sized winter quilts designed for their smaller beds. These use the same thick batting and dense stitching as adult versions, but in dimensions appropriate for cribs and youth beds. Mothers create these with particular care, knowing that children cannot verbally communicate dangerous cold exposure symptoms. Teenage boys receive durable winter quilts designed to withstand rough treatment, sleeping in cold barns during calving season, wrapping themselves during outdoor night chores, or using them as padding when hauling equipment. These work quilts are functional rather than precious. Married couples receive quilts sized generously for double beds, often as wedding gifts. A bride might receive 3 to 5 quilts as wedding presents. typically including at least one heavy winter quilt from her mother or grandmother. These represent the older generation's blessing and practical support for the new marriage. Guest rooms maintain at least one quality winter quilt for visitors. Hospitality ranks high in Amish values, and providing warm sleeping accommodations demonstrates proper care for guests. Testing and adjustments. The first cold night of autumn serves as a testing ground for new winter quilts. Families note which rooms feel adequately warm and which sleepers still complain of cold. A quilt that seemed perfectly adequate during construction might prove insufficient when actual winter conditions arrive. These evaluations happen informally. Family members mention being cold at breakfast, mothers notice children sleeping with extra clothes, or elderly family members request additional bedding. Adjustments can include adding extra quilts as layering pieces, which many families do as standard practice. A medium-weight quilt underneath a heavy winter quilt creates more warmth than a single ultra-heavy quilt because air trapped between the layers adds insulation. Some families use summer quilts as bottom layers, getting additional use from bedding that would otherwise sit in storage. If a quilt proves inadequate despite layering, repairs or modifications become necessary before deep winter arrives. Adding a flannel backing to a quilt originally made with cotton backing can be done relatively quickly. Stitching through to add extra quilting lines in areas where batting has shifted or thinned takes more time but improves warmth significantly. Some women disassemble inadequate quilts entirely, add thicker batting, and requilt them, a last resort requiring substantial labor but necessary for family safety. Feedback from family members gets taken seriously. A grandmother who mentions being cold receives immediate attention. Her comments might trigger emergency quilting sessions where multiple women work together to quickly create an additional warm quilt. The consequences of inadequate bedding are too severe to ignore or dismiss complaints as minor. Storage and rotation. When spring arrives and temperatures warm, winter quilts require careful storage. These heavy quilts cannot simply be folded into closets. They need protection from moths, moisture, and compression damage. Most Amish households store winter quilts in cedar chests or closets lined with cedar, which naturally repels moths without chemical pesticides. Before storage, quilts get aired thoroughly. Women hang them on clotheslines outdoors on warm, breezy spring days, allowing winter's accumulated moisture and odors to dissipate. Some families wash winter quilts before storage, though this is controversial. Washing the heavy quilts is difficult. Drying them fully is challenging, and some women believe washing wears them out faster than occasional spot cleaning. Rotation schedules extend quilt lifespan. A family with 3 winter quilts for a particular bed might rotate them throughout the season, using each for a month or 6 weeks before switching. This prevents any single quilt from wearing out prematurely and ensures backup quilts are available if one needs repairs. The rotation system also means families can wash one quilt while using others. Properly cared for winter quilts last 20 to 30 years or longer. Some families use the same winter quilts for multiple generations, with repairs and updates extending their useful life. A grandmother's winter quilt might eventually serve a granddaughter's family, carrying not just warmth, but family history and connection across decades. Emergency winter quilts. Despite advanced planning, emergencies arise. A newborn arrives earlier than expected, requiring immediate infant bedding. A house fire destroys a family's possessions, including all their quilts. An elderly relative comes to live with the family unexpectedly. These situations demand rapid quilt creation that cannot wait for traditional, lengthy construction. Emergency quilts use shortcuts that would be unacceptable for regular quilts, but are justified by urgent need. Tying rather than quilting, where yarn or thread gets knotted through the layers at regular intervals, secures batting adequately while requiring a fraction of the time. A tied quilt can be completed in days rather than months. The result is less durable and slightly less warm, but acceptable for immediate need. Community crisis response reveals Amish mutual aid at its finest. When a family loses their home to fire, multiple women might gather to create emergency quilts within days. Each woman brings materials and works on separate sections, assembling them quickly into functional quilts. These crisis quilts might not meet normal quality standards, but they provide immediate warmth while permanent replacements get made over the following months. Charity quilting extends beyond community boundaries. Many Amish communities create winter quilts specifically for donation to homeless shelters, disaster relief organizations, or needy families outside the Amish community. These quilts are simpler in design but still functional and warm, representing the Amish belief that practical service demonstrates faith more authentically than words alone.